Clarita here, and I've got a new sponsor, DistroKid. If you want to release your music into the world, DistroKid's the easiest way to get your music into all the major streaming platforms, unlimited uploads, and keep 100% of your royalties. And because you're a Design Freaks listener, you get 30% off. Go to distrokid.com/VIP/designfreaks. DistroKid. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Design Freaks podcast, where we talk about music industry, art, and design. Record covers, posters, flyers. Every time I say flyers, it's with a southern accent. Now I can't stop. Basically, all kinds of fun and weird graphic design. I'm Clarita, and I am your host, and it's a new year. I can say it. It's still January. Happy New Year. Year of the Tiger. Meow. This is episode 45 with Marcus Wilson, aka Ursula Android, Connie Merlot, and others. Marcus is a Seattle-based musician, artist, designer, performer, producer of shows, and overall aesthetics mastermind. And comedian. This interview is so fun and funny. I just cracked up while I was editing. It's really great. You're going to love it. But first, I wanted to say thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoy the show, please share it with other vinyl and design freaks and leave a review and subscribe wherever you found me. I have a lot more to come, lots more fun interviews coming up in the new year. And you can find everything at designfreakspodcast.com. You can contact me there. You can buy some merch. You can donate. And speaking of, thank you to Keith Brogdon for the donation. I failed to mention that in December. Keith is part of an acronym called TOLD, T-O-L-D, Thinking Out Loud Design. Very cool. Thank you. And for more music-related podcasts, and if you'd like to sponsor the show, check out ruinousmedia.com. And now, fasten your seatbelts, get put on some kind of Gallagher shield. It's a wild ride, folks. Enjoy. Let's party.
Hello.
Hello. Marcus.
How are you? Hi.
I'm well. How are you, Clarita?
I'm doing okay. Is it too late to say Happy New Year?
It's never too late to say Happy New Year.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, and thank your cats as well.
Aw, and thank your cats. I wanted to see if you would do like a little introduction.
Well, my name is Marcus Wilson, and I'm a Seattle-based visual artist, designer, performer, and I've been working in the Seattle area for 25 years now in various media, painting, collage, drag, performance art, singing in bands, DJing. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm a Sagittarius, and I think that's supposed to be a Sagittarian thing, sort of a dabbler in a lot of different things.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. You seem so nice. You don't seem evil.
I think Scorpio males are actually the evilest, but even though I'm a Sagittarius sun sign, like my moon and my rising, I think are both Scorpios.
Ooh. Well, I'm an Aries, so I'm also fire. So I totally get it. I get the bad reputation as well. I moved here in 98. I can't remember when did you move to Seattle?
I moved here in 96.
Okay, so if we go back in time, the first time I became aware of you as it was Ursula Android was at Sit and Spin.
Yay.
And yeah. And I lived across the street from it. So that was my laundromat and it was like my coffee shop and I hung out there. And a lot of people, like I've told stories about Sit and Spin on the show before, but I just love talking about it because it was such a weird, unique place.
Such a magical place. And yeah, there was definitely nothing else like it. And certainly hasn't been anything remotely like it since. I mean, I guess the place with the closest energy in Seattle for me to Sit and Spin probably would have been like Rebar, except for the fact that on top of being like a really fun club, like Rebar wasn't also a laundromat and a pizzeria. Yeah, that place was so great, and the staff there was so wonderful and
so good. Lacey worked there.
Nikki Sugar worked there. Yeah, a lot of great people.
That creepy Alice in Wonderland painting.
Mm-hmm. And I once dropped an envelope filled with, I think, almost $2,000 in door money on the floor there. And they just called me laughing the next day, like the janitor had found it, and they just like gave it all back to me.
Oh my gosh. Let's pour some out for the Sit and Spin.
Mm-hmm.
In memoriam. Yeah, so I saw you perform Babies. That was the first time I saw you, and I was like, I do not regret moving here now. Okay, you performed as, so that was a Phobang, right? So Phobang was the event, correct?
Yes, yeah. Phobang started in February of 2000. That was at a dearly departed, amazing, strange place called Fox's, which was a drag bar on Capitol Hill. And we did Phobang at Fox's every Thursday night for exactly 1 year. And we showed up, I think it was to do our 1 year anniversary edition of Phobang, and we got to Fox's and there were chains on the doors, and we looked inside and all the liquor was gone and the sound system had been taken out, and the owners of the club had fled the state in the middle of the night. And whoa. Wah, wah, wah. That was the end of the first incarnation of Phobang at Fox's. And when we first started Phobang, the reason why we did it at Fox's wasn't necessarily because we thought that would be the perfect place for it, although it did end up being so. But it was just because no one else was interested in allowing us to do what we were doing. And my partner in crime, Jackie Hell, and then my boyfriend at the time, who was our DJ, we just wanted to throw a party that was equal parts drag show, punk rock live show, and a dance party. And getting any club, gay or straight or in between or neither, to bite onto that idea in 1999 was impossible. And those three things, the dance party, rock show, and drag show, like, people thought those were three great tastes that did not taste great together. And nobody wanted to go there with us.
I would like to also add a sprinkle of horror.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To it.
And, but Fox's wasn't doing very well, and they had a lot of empty dates on their calendar. And we were already regulars there. And so they were just like, sure, what the hell? And they had very low expectations. And the first Thursday that we did Fobang, I would say probably, 25 or 30 people showed up. And, we just had the best time. And by the next Thursday, there was a line out the door all the way, Olive Way down to City Market of people trying to get in. And it pretty much instantly, after that first week, I mean, Thursday night was the night to go out. And I can't tell you how many 9-to-5ers told me that they lost their jobs because they could never make it to work on Fridays because of Fobang.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so we did the show at Fox's for exactly a year, and then it closed. And then we didn't really know what we were going to do because I think we thought we were still in that position of no legitimate club wanting us, but that turned out not to be the case. And most of the clubs in town reached out to us about moving. Graceland, I think, is what El Corazon was called back then. And then a couple other clubs, Rebar. But Sit and Spin reached out to us, and they definitely seemed like the best fit for us. So we moved it to Sit and Spin. Mm-hmm. But I had promised the owners of Rebar. Rebar was still a tavern at the time. And this was in the early thousands. That's when the tavern laws in Seattle really started to change, and more clubs could start serving hard liquor. It's a long, boring story, but Rebar was still a tavern and could only serve beer and wine. And that was my caveat with Rebar. I said, if you ever get hard liquor, I'll move my show to your bar. And so we did Fobang for about a year at Sit and Spin, and then Rebar finally got hard liquor, and I felt honor bound to move the show to Rebar. But in retrospect, I kind of wish we had stayed at Sit and Spin.
But they didn't stay open much longer, did they?
No.
After that,
right. Yeah, but
yeah, those tavern laws were weird. I remember taking shots of port at the Comet.
Yep. So weird.
So gross.
Yeah, and when I first moved here in '96, you still had a certain portion of your sales had to be food to be able to serve hard liquor. And so there weren't a lot of places outside of sit-down restaurants. There weren't a lot of bars that could serve hard liquor. And one of the places, you could get booze was Neighbors. The reason why Neighbors could serve hard liquor back in the day is they had this horrifying buffet out in the nightclub, and your cover charge was supposedly to pay for the buffet. And it was referred to by many as the hepatitis buffet because...
What was in it? What?
Oh, there was macaroni and cheese with hot dogs in it, and casseroles, and this was just sitting out near the dance floor in this smoke-filled gay dance club, and people would literally put their cigarettes out in the buffet. And one night, towards the end of the night, they had taken all of the They had taken all of the food items out of the buffet, but the buffet itself was still sitting there. And I was at Neighbors in drag, and I was wearing this sort of burnt orange fake fur coat. And I was dancing on the dance floor, and I got hot, and I threw my coat on the buffet. But the buffet was still filled with water that was underneath it. And my coat absorbed all of the water, and it weighed about 100 pounds. And I just had to drag it out of the club at the end of the night, leaving this trail of buffet water behind me. It was a really classy episode.
Oh my God, buffet water. Yuck. God, I don't ever remember. I used to go there on Thursday nights.
Thursday nights. New Wave night.
New Wave night. And I do not remember a buffet, but I usually went there after something. So probably after the Comet, taking shots of port and then go to Neighbors. And I remember other places having like a fake wink wink food menu that they're like, not really, don't order anything.
Yeah, what those laws really championed more than anything else, in my opinion, was just a lot of really horrible food in Seattle bars and restaurants, because so many places would have a full kitchen just so that they could serve hard liquor, but they were definitely putting, you know, the least love and the least work possible into their kitchen, you know.
Oh yeah, they're definitely going and getting Costco hot dogs
if you're lucky.
Let's take a trip back in time. I want to go back and go. You're tiny little Marcus. You're growing up in Arizona, correct?
Yeah, we moved to Arizona when I was about 5 or 6. I was born in Munich, Germany, because my dad was in the service. And then after that, we were stationed in Kentucky. And after that, my mom got sick of being an army wife and moving around. She wanted to move back to Phoenix, unfortunately, which is where she had grown up and where her family was. So yeah, that's how I ended up in Phoenix.
And okay, I want to know how that was like. Did that affect your aesthetics? How did you get into art? What's your what's the origin story behind creativity for you in Phoenix?
Well, I think a lot of it was in the summertime. You know, it was too hot to go out and play. And so I was, inside all the time. And, you can only watch so much television. And I think that's what really led me to, indoor activities like arts and crafts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then when I was about 12 years old, we moved to a new house, and there was a boy who lived across the street my age, and we became best friends. And his parents were this really fantastic intellectual artist couple, and they saw something in me, and they bought me my first paint and canvases and really, really encouraged me to write. And they were so funny. They when my best friend, their son, would be playing sports with other kids in the neighborhood, they could tell how disinterested I was, and they would be like, why don't you come watch a movie with us? And I was 12. Aww. and they would show me Eraserhead or The Wicker Man. And yeah, they were really great. And when I was
Cool.
about 13, they took us to Tucson, and we went and saw the performance artist Karen Finley. And this is when she was like stripping nude and cracking eggs all over her body and covering herself with glitter and then having sex with a sweet potato.
Oh.
Or rather a yam. I'm sorry. But so they exposed me to so much at a really great age. And
Boy, did they.
yeah. And then around the same time in junior high, I broke my leg playing soccer in PE, and there was a real silver lining to that, because not only did I not have to be in PE for the rest of that year, instead I was a library assistant during that period. And there wasn't a whole lot for me to do, and there was a photocopier in the library, and I spent most of my time just playing around with the photocopier and, you know, enlarging and
Hell
playing
yeah.
with images from like reference books and magazines and all sorts of stuff, and started making collages. And I think that's really where my love of collage like really began, and graphic art. It's definitely that old cliche that kids will, I guess, sort of oftentimes grow up to be the opposite of what their parents want, or because my parents at the time were quite conservative, not super religious, but just very modest and conservative, and not really into anything too like ostentatious or eccentric or weird. And so yeah, my best friend, you know, his parents were just the complete opposite. I mean, my parents thought of them as hippies, but they weren't hippies though. They were much more like kind of bohemian intellectuals, and like, whereas then their own son, my best friend at the time, you know, was raised by these like artists and, you know, extreme liberals, and you know, he grew up to be a cop.
Okay, family switch. What's the first record cover that mesmerized you that you remember?
So my parents were not very musical people. Like, music didn't really seem to mean a lot to them. So they had a pretty small record collection, and it was mostly easy listening and some soundtracks. And that was mostly my mother's. My dad was even less into music or buying records than my mom, and he what few records he did have were also mostly easy listening. And he was in the military, and he actually owned several albums of army marching, like literally recorded albums of soldiers marching and their commanders' cadences and orders to them.
So relaxing.
But and so as far as the album cover art goes, it was all really not very imaginative, because, you know, it was mostly just these albums that would have the artist on the cover, very straightforward. But my mom was really into Barbra Streisand, and
Ooh.
you know, most of Barbara's albums are very straightforward, and, you know, just a photograph of Les Streisand herself. But she had this one album that she put out in the 70s called Butterfly. And I would be flipping through my mom's records, and the cover of Butterfly always stopped me because it was the cover of the album was a photograph of a stick of butter with a housefly that had landed on it.
Oh, get it?
And, you know, it's such a corny pun and, you know, such a silly visual joke, but it really blew my mind. Like, I didn't know that you could put anything on a record cover other than,
I'm looking at it.
a photograph of the artist. And, you know, as goofy as it is, it was, in a way, it was kind of my introduction to like pop art. And then the back cover was really crazy too. It was this very psychedelic painting of Barbra Streisand, and her hair is, from what I remember, is all rainbow, and it's spinning out into like butterflies.
My God. Yeah.
And so both the front cover and the back cover really kind of blew my mind at the time, and really like opened this door to me that like an album cover, you know, could be more than just a standard photo of the band or the singer or whatever.
Do you think the butter with the fly on it is a painting, or is that a photo? I can't tell.
You know, I haven't taken a look at it in a while, but I think it's a photo.
Yeah, it's really cool. Good art direction. I like the simplicity of it. And it's interesting that she doesn't use her last name on this record. It's Barbara. And that painting is crazy.
But yeah, that was definitely the first album cover that made me really think about, you know, about that medium being able to be really used as an actual art medium. The next record cover that I can think of that really struck me was probably Rio by Duran Duran.
Oh yeah.
You know, it just pushed so many buttons for me. And, you know, having grown up in the 70s at the time, I really hated 70s aesthetics. And, you know, everything was brown and macrame and troll dolls and shag carpet and, you know, lots of things that I have an appreciation for now, but I hated them as a kid. And that cover, you know, with the Nagel painting, it really did just represent the 80s and, you know, the slickness of it and artificiality. And it seems so European and futuristic.
I thought it was so cool. And the way, so it's designed by Malcolm Garrett, who did all the Buzzcocks design. And I loved how he paired typography with the Nagel artwork and made it just look so seamless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was so good at that.
And I feel like it's a great example of a record that sounds like what the cover looks like.
Yes.
I love it when a record can do that. And another record that comes to mind that does that for me is the album The Sky's Gone Out by Bauhaus. When I was about, I guess, 15 or 16, I went to this really great record store in Phoenix called Stinkweeds. And I saw the cover of the CD of the Sky's Gone Out by Bauhaus, and I had heard of the band. I had seen some people, you know, punks in Phoenix, like on the bus or whatever, wearing Bauhaus t-shirts, but I'd never heard their music. And the cover of that record just was so intriguing and so unlike anything I'd really ever seen before. And so I just bought the CD based on the cover, and I just could not stop staring at it. And, you know, I got home and I put the CD on, and it just, the opening track there, insane cover of Third Uncle by Brian Eno.
Yeah.
It's just one of those situations where like it sounded exactly like what the cover was promising, like and the whole record did, and it was just like this seamless, combination of the imagery on the album cover with the music.
It does sound exactly how it looks. And if you had a good sound system, Third Uncle by Bauhaus was so amazing.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
and better than the original, I gotta say. Sorry, but
well, that's one of the. I love bands, and I love artists that are super fans themselves. And I mean, Bauhaus's original music is incredible, but all of their covers are so great, and they whether it's T-Rex or Brian Eno or even David Bowie. Like their covers, or John Cale with Rose Garden Funeral of Sores, their covers almost all are better than the original. Like they're so great. Well, they took all of these 70s glam classics, and there's just this kind of almost like amphetamine, like they just turned it up, like it's just faster and more frenetic and more intense.
Intense. Yeah, Susie Sue did amazing covers too.
Yes, she did. In my teens and into my early 20s, like a lot of people, I really, really fell in love with Von Oliver and 23 Envelope and the whole 4AD Records aesthetic. It really occupied this space between commercial art and fine art. That said, it kind of wore off for me. Like I don't like it the way that I did back then. It hasn't really held up that well for me. Like I certainly still appreciate it, but in a way it kind of seems pretty dated at this point. Totally. But at around the same time, in my teens, I was a huge Smiths fan, and I feel like even though it's much more minimal and straightforward, I feel like the graphic design of the Smiths catalog, singles and albums, like remains pretty timeless, and it was hugely inspirational to me. And there are two women, like I think Morrissey would choose the images, but there were two women. One of them's name is Jo Slee, and the other one's name is Karen Gao. I think that's how Gough. And I believe they did like the layout and like the font choices and those sleeves. They just taught me so much about how much a choice of font and specifically really subtle uses of color can really change your emotional response to a photograph. Because, almost all of those Smiths sleeves are Morrissey's favorite celebrities, like a lot of British soap opera stars and a lot of queer icons, Candy Darling, Truman Capote, et cetera, et cetera. And they were almost always black and white photos that had just been very subtly tinted and very similar to like a lot of like Andy Warhol's art. Just, the use of color and font can really alter the way you feel about a photograph. I feel like there isn't a dud in the whole Smith's discography as far as those covers go. And then even into Morrissey's early solo career, he kept working with that same team But then all the images became of him rather than... But they were still beautiful, and I think it's really telling that he stopped working with those two women at some point in the 90s, and his cover artwork like just went absolutely irrevocably down the tubes, kind of like, in my opinion, his music as well, but
kind of a universal thought at this point, but
I definitely think those two women deserve much more attention and appreciation, because I think it speaks for itself that their contributions were really important.
We'll have to do an episode dedicated. So it's Joe Slee, Joslee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Karen Gao.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it looks like Joe Slee is credited for doing the Strange Ways Here We Come, which, is a really weird cover.
Yeah, that's Richard Davalos. On that cover, he co-starred with James Dean in Exit to Eden.
Ah, I knew it was an actor. Yeah. Very cool. And then it looks like she designed the cover of his book as well. Peepholism?
Yeah, that's a really hard book to get your hands on. I think it goes for $300 to like $500. But yeah, it's a book of every single design that she did with Morrissey.
That's awesome. Somebody send us that book. We'll share it. Great recommendation.
I guess getting back to Bauhaus again. So Daniel Ash from Bauhaus, he created that cover for The Sky's Gone Out, and he also a painting of his is on the cover of their album Mask, and I don't think he did all of their covers, but I can remember buying their records and looking at the credits and seeing that he had done them, and that really, it made me so excited to think that you could be in a band and not only make the music but also be allowed to make your own cover. And I think I always thought, like, wow, if I'm in a band, like, that's what I want to do. And coincidentally, I did just design the cover to the ONONOS new album. I've always wanted to, and I don't know if this just sounds like I'm a big control freak but whatever I've been involved in, whether it's like a painting or a record or throwing a club night, I've always wanted to be involved in all aspects of it. And, when I first started throwing Phobang, what was so exciting about it was that I got to do so many things. And from booking the bands to designing the posters and the flyers and designing the stage decorations to also writing and starring in the stage shows and kind of producing them and directing them. For me, that was like a dream come true. And
wow. Well, you did a great job, and I would like to say that that's why it was consistent. It's because you had your hand on all those things, and it was your vision. And
I mean, I had a lot of help. My obviously my co-host and co-creator Jackie Hell, that goes without speaking or without saying, but my friend Rachel Rudnick, she helped me book so many fantastic bands, and I think part of what really made Phobang work as far as the bands goes, it was this kind of nice back and forth between, there was a big, punk revival and garage revival happening around that time. And there were just so many great bands of those genres, whether it was the Spits, but then there were also so many great like art punk bands, synth punk bands, really, really weird, or like sort of new wave revival groups, and a lot of like queer punk bands emerging at the time. And so, it was like one week you might have the Chromatics playing one of their first shows, and then the next week it would be the Spits, and then the next week it would be the A-Frames, and then the week after that the Gossip playing their first show in a bar when they were 19 years old. And
wow.
it was such an incredible era in Northwest music. There were just all of these bands sprouting up almost daily, it felt, and it made booking, not only did it make it really easy, but it was just such a joy. And there were a lot of bands that even if they weren't necessarily great, they were hugely entertaining for one reason or another.
I was just remembering I saw the Gossip at the Sit and Spin as well, so that must have been and like, yeah, you're right, like that was such a magical time.
I mean, I can remember, and this is too bad for the band that was actually booked, but we were doing Phobang one night, and the Gossip had already played at Phobang once before, and they'd gotten a lot of attention, and they were opening for Sonic Youth a few months later, and it at I think the Moore or the Paramount, and it just happened to be on a Thursday. And they showed up at about 11 or 12 at night, and they were just like, that wasn't any fun. And they were like, can we play here tonight too? And, and I mean, at that point, I think everyone completely forgot about whatever other band was playing that night.
Where was Sonic Youth playing? Do you remember?
I think it was at the Paramount.
Oh, right. Okay. God, yeah, boring. Compared to Phobang, my God.
So once again, my friend Rachel Rudnick and I had become really close right before Phobang happened, and she was in a garage punk band at the time called Get Down Syndrome.
I remember that.
And she was just so inspiring and had so many fantastic ideas and a wicked sense of humor. But she was the one that said, like, Ursula should have a band. And I had not tried to be in a band since high school. I was in a couple of short-lived goth bands in Phoenix, Arizona. And both times the general consensus was just, you can't sing. And that really like crushed me. And I kind of like, hid away the idea of ever being in a band again, even though I really, really wanted to be. And, but, drag really, really can free you and help you as far as doing things in public and on stage that you might never do as yourself. And so it was, just kind of like, if Ursula is in a band and she sucks, like, oh well, that's Ursula, that's not me. And so it really gave me that extra layer of like armor that I needed. And so Rachel is the one that, like, she and her friend Steve that were in Get Down Syndrome together, they became my drummer and my guitarist. And then Rachel knew about this really, really cool guy named Ross who was in a band called The Cripples. Like, none of these bands could have these names at this point.
No.
And yeah, I think Ross just happened to be at Phobang one night, and Rachel and I walked up and said, "Hey, do you want to be in Ursula and the Androids?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, great." And so he became our keyboard player, and then the three of them, Rachel, Ross, and Steve, were also Jackie Hell's backing band. But with Jackie, they were Jackie and the Control Tops, and they were kind of like a swamp bluesy, like sleazy blues band. And then with me, they were the Androids, and it was like a poppy, new wavy synth group.
Can people find like footage of these performances anywhere, or?
There's not a lot out there. This was probably, half a decade to a decade before everyone had a camera on them. And I mean, it's hard to really even remember like just how different things were as far as documentation. Like we would be lucky if one person we knew would show up with a video camera, and that person was usually the amazing Tara Thomas, who, I mean, Tara wore so many hats at Phobang, like as videographer, hairstylist, driver, and then of course she also played the incredible role of Jackie Hell's daughter, Debbie, which there were so many like devoted fans of the show, and they just loved it when Jackie and I would just pull out all the stops and be as raunchy and horrific and like awful as possible. Like nothing was too much, but for a lot of people, Debbie was too much. Like I found that mask that Tara would wear as Debbie I found it at a garage sale for 25 cents, and I've always said that was the best 25 cents I ever spent in my life. Like that mask just like horrifies people, like to their essence.
Did she do backup dancing for Peaches as Debbie?
And let me tell you, Peaches was not a fan.
I know. I love that story. I didn't realize that was the Debbie character. Okay.
I don't think Peaches likes to be upstaged. And Debbie will upstage anyone and anything.
She'll come to your wedding. We love Tara. Hi, Tara. Oh my God.
Tara.
Oh my God. That's awesome. So then fast forward to, I don't mean to speed you along or anything, but I love that. Okay. So Tara is not in the ONONOS, but Ross kind of is in everything.
Yes. Ross is absolutely superhuman and so incredibly talented and inspiring and amazing to work with. And we've been in the Androids and the ONONOS and Connie and the Precious Moments. Basically, I would never have had a semi-career in music if not for Ross.
Oh, what's up, Ross? Shout out. I need like sound effects or something. Ross.
Yay, Ross.
So that was delayed. Tell my listeners about ONONOS, because to me, that is, of course, I love the drag shows, but there's something about the latex. I wouldn't call it drag. I would call it, what would you call it?
I think we were calling it like space drag.
Maybe like gimp drag a little, but
it's kind of like
dominant gimp,
sort of club kitty, but sent through like a black hole or something. So yeah, I had been doing Ursula and the Androids for I think about 5 years, and drag was starting to kind of wear on me. it had gone, there was like this downward progression where it went from my favorite thing in the world to one of my favorite things to do, to then just seeming like a good job, to then just feeling like a job, and then finally just seeming like just this responsibility or this thing I had to do. It just, the magic just wasn't there for me, but I still loved singing and performing and producing. But I just didn't want to have to spend 3 hours getting into drag every time I did a performance. And also I was getting a little more serious about the music itself. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just wanted to do something where it could be more actually about the music and still have a strong visual component to it, but something that I could get into and out of in more like 10 minutes.
Right.
And, you know, Ross and I just had such a similar vision and a similar love for synthesizers and mutant disco, and then around that time we had become friends with the lovely Tyler Bosch, who you've had on your show.
Yes. Hi, Tyler.
And, you know, we were all very similarly into really, really weird synth bands like Nervous Gender and The Normal and Malaria, and we were all also very, very into Yoko Ono. And somehow this idea came along to start a synth punk Yoko Ono semi-tribute band. And
but that does a Bad Brain cover.
And so, yes, in the beginning, it was pretty much all covers, mostly Yoko,
Screamers.
but we also did the Screamers, Bad Brains, the Misfits, Latour. We did a Pixies cover, and then more and more, though, we were having so much fun, and all of a sudden we just really felt inspired to write, and we just started writing more and more originals. And, you know, over the course of about a decade, the covers, and particularly the Yoko covers, pretty much all got weeded out. And at this point, the majority of the songs that we play are originals, though we do still do a couple of covers, like a Tones on Tail cover. But yeah, the band has just really morphed and evolved a lot. And it's only taken us 14 years, but we're finally putting out our first full-length record.
All right.
Up until this, like, all we'd put out was a cassette and like a burned CD. But and Tyler moved on, and we love him and we miss him. And for about a year or two, we were so fortunate to work with the incredible Stacy Peck as our drummer, and she has played in such wonderful bands as Childbirth and Ponytime.
Oh my God, I love Childbirth.
Telepathic Liberation Army.
Yes.
She's worked with Jen Champion, but Stacy has also moved on to other things. And so at this point, ONONOS are just Ross and I, and we're not really sure what that means as far as live performances go in the future. Everything is so strange right now anyway.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we'll have an album release show.
Well, tell the listeners how to at least hear your music while you're figuring out the touring or performing stuff. So it's coming out when-ish? Do we know yet?
It's coming out in either late spring or early summer of 2022, and it's being released by the incredible Clyde Peterson on his record label Cruisin Records, and it'll be available on Bandcamp, and it will be available on vinyl, and I'm just really, really proud of this record and excited for people to hear it.
I can't wait to hear it. I saw when you were in process making the album cover, and I love it. And it, just like you said about the Bauhaus, it looks like the music sounds. Good job.
Well, thank you very much.
Is that fun for you, like creating design for to match music? Like,
oh yeah, I
you
absolutely
enjoy it?
love it.
Yeah. It looks great. And I'm also flipping through all the old flyers too, and I think you should do more of that, sir. I think you should do more music design if you can.
Well, I would love to. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me go to my list here really quick. I know it's been an hour, but we haven't told the OC story. Are we allowed to, or is there too much weird shit that we can't?
Well, let's see. So way back in, I think it was 2003, it might be 2004, John Dwyer's pretend gay German industrial band Ziegenbachkopf played at Fobang at Rebar, and it was an absolutely incredible night. Definitely in the top 10, if not top 3 Fobangs. And I think it was definitely the best one we ever did at Rebar. But the only lighting in all of Rebar was strobe lights. I think there were about 20 or 30 of them going off around the club. And we had like 4 or 5 fog machines going. So the entire club was just this like nebula of fog and strobe lights. Ziegenbachkopf, they were dressed in see-through mesh bikinis with leather engineer boots and leather daddy caps and aviator shades. And John Dwyer was somehow literally climbing the walls and the ceiling of Rebar like Spider-Man. And it was nuts and so much fun. And honestly, I can't even remember how we ended up booking them. But the next day, we were saying goodbye to them as they were leaving to go play their next date. And John said to us, like, oh, like, that was so much fun. You should come down and do a Fobang in San Francisco on Halloween. And we were like, yeah, great. And so we agreed to do that. And John booked a venue in San Francisco, and we all, bought our plane tickets and got our hotel rooms, and we were so excited. And a couple days before the show, John called me, and evidently the club, the venue, had been double booked for the night, and they decided to go with the other booking. So we didn't have a venue to do the show in.
Shit.
But, all the tickets had been bought and everything. And John was like, I'll make it work. Like, come on down anyway. And so we did. And John's solution was to try to throw this this like epic club night in his practice space.
Oh my God.
That would maybe hold a dozen people, and several hundred people showed up and waited in line, and the bill was Ursula and the Androids, Jackie Hall and the Control Tops, the band Dynasty that eventually became Dynasty Handbag, and then our friends, the Charming Snakes, also got added onto the bill at the last minute. And I can't remember if John was even going to play that night or not, but it became, as soon as we got there, pretty evident that this was not going to work. There were like hundreds of people waiting outside in costume and trying to get into this tiny practice space. And I know there was a lot of LSD going around. And
my God.
And there was no bar, but no one had been told to bring their own liquor either. So people were really upset about that. And I know that the band Dynasty played, and then the Charming Snakes came on, and midway through their set, the cops showed up and shut the show down. And then they left, and we started the show back up again, and
as you do.
Ursula and the Androids tried to play, and then the cops came back with like a dozen squad cars, and they actually did start arresting people.
Oh,
and
no.
And then it just completely disintegrated after that.
Oh.
And Lacey from the Charming Snakes drove a bunch of us in their tour van to this rave that someone told us about that was in this bizarre, secret, gigantic space that was under the freeway in San Francisco.
That
and it
sounds right.
And it was absolutely like just being in like Soylent Green or something. It was just this weird dystopian sci-fi space. And but
well, nobody got arrested in the group of the bands and everybody.
No, and
Okay.
I'm surprised because one of our band members, who shall remain nameless, was actually hitting the police with his keyboard and
Who could that?
and just kept plugging it back into the wall and trying to play anyway.
Oh my God, John, what are you doing? We love John. Thank you for letting me use your song. But that's insane. And I mean, it sounds like an epic Halloween if I've ever heard one.
And the only other thing I remember about it was I woke up so hungover the next day, and we decided to go either thrift shopping or record shopping, and I felt like I was going to die, and I guzzled a bottle of Pepto-Bismol, and we got on the bus. We got on the bus to go. I think we were going to like Amoeba Records in the Haight, and like 2 minutes after getting on the bus, I had to pull the string and like to make the bus stop, and I leapt off the bus and projectile vomited that entire bottle of Pepto-Bismol over a wall that was painted green. And
Beautiful.
and it was disgusting, but it looked really great.
Always an artist, listeners. Beautiful. I love that story, even though it sounds also stressful. I just have a couple things left. I wanted to talk briefly about Connie and the Precious Moments.
lovely, lovely Miss Merlot.
Yes.
Yeah, Connie is kind of like the absolute opposite side of the coin to Ursula. Ursula was, kind of like this combination of Susie Sue, Klaus Nomi, Ozzy Osbourne, Yoko Ono, Fad Gadget, just basically abrasive and punk new wave, whereas Connie was all about Barbara Mandrell and Donna Fargo, Linda Evans, Barbara Streisand, the Pointer Sisters, and there's definitely a lot of my mom in Connie, and my an aunt of mine as well. But there's a documentary from 1982 that was made by Nick Broomfield, who would go on to make Kurt and Courtney and Biggie and Tupac and like the Heidi Fleiss Hollywood Madam documentary. But the Chicken Ranch was actually his first documentary, and he's a British documentarian that went and spent 6 weeks living at the Chicken Ranch brothel in Pahrump, Nevada.
Pahrump.
And it's a very low key, very, in my opinion, not sensational. It's just kind of like a day in the life, or in the case of the documentary, 6 weeks in the life of the women working at the Chicken Ranch. And if you're looking for a exciting, salacious, sexy documentary about sex workers, that's not it. Instead, I find it fascinating and in how boring it really is. And
I love it.
And the ladies working there are very much like house cats. They spend most of their time just grooming and lounging and waiting for the clientele to show up. But Connie is one of the ladies in the documentary, and she's most notable, well, first of all, for her extremely tight auburn perm, but also
tight curls,
but also for her sort of melancholy side / really angry demeanor. And she kind of charms you and breaks your heart at the same time. And
no, thank you.
For some reason, I decided to start performing as this real person from this documentary, as a drag persona. And I started out by hosting karaoke as Connie at the Crescent and Fox's. And once again, through the help of some lovely friends, Connie got her own band, The Precious Moments.
You might be asking yourself, I've never quite heard music like this before. What is it? Well, you know what? There's never been music like this before. We've created our own genre.
The Precious Moments sound, they have their own genre known as Softronics, which is electronica for the rest of us, or electronica with all the edges cut off. And it's very inspired by Giorgio Moroder meets smooth jazz with a little like new age healing music mixed in, and
but a tiny bit of like feminism from the 70s.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. Is that second wave or feminism 2.5?
I don't know.
Maybe. And it also allows Connie to, explore her love of poetry and affirmations and
the tight wig, the tinted glasses, the 70s vibes. I mean, it's all like a gauzy dream of a band. I love it so much. And then Renee on keys and Joyce on the rain stick, right?
Rain stick, triangle, glockenspiel.
Percush.
Didgeridoo.
Of course.
Or didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo. All the rejected percussionists.
Joyce, I'm really sorry, folks. Joyce just, she hasn't been attending rehearsals. She's a single mother. She has 3 children. She's working 2 jobs. She's going to college. But Joyce, this is inexcusable. I told you this would happen. Folks, I'm really sorry. She just doesn't know that song. She just does not know it.
Did I ruin everyone's party? I'm sorry.
I love all the personas. They're all perfect. I've seen Connie play many times, and it's always a great time. So, listeners, if you get the chance, don't regret it. You'll regret it for the rest of your life.
Without any further ado, let's party.
What do you want people to know?
Be on the lookout for the ONONOS self-titled album in, once again, vaguely late spring or early summer of this year. And for the, I think, 4th year in a row, except for 2020, I'm going to be co-curating an art show at the Steve Gilbert studio here in Seattle in June for Pride. And it's a group show, and it's always really, really fun. And I'm looking forward to curating that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. 2 things to look forward to. Yeah, thank you so much, Marcus, for doing this. I feel like we just scratched the surface. Like we could talk about this stuff forever, but...
Well, thank you so much, Clarita. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Have a great night. Bye.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Homage to her, but also to all of you out there that have ever lost anyone that you truly loved. Okay, I still can't believe you're gone. I still can't believe it. I loved it when you permed my hair. Stopped by to buy a bottle of Nair. I can't believe you're not sitting there. JJ, I love you the most, I swear. I need to hear half your breath. Anything to hear half your breath. JJ, you were always there with a hug, or we'd go shopping at the Fashion Bug. On our nights off, we'd either drink whiskey from a jug, or we'd have a little playful cat fight and roll around on a rug.